The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome to Old Space Show. I am Brandon, and riding shotgun here with me is Tony.
Hi, everybody. I wish that Tony was a cool acronym, a Tony. I can't make up anything on the fly, so it's just my name. No big deal.
All right, fair enough. This year, maybe I'll find one for you by the end of this.
Love it.
All right, this series of Old Space Show will follow the exploits of a man in his car in the first season of Knight Rider. Today, we are here to discuss the third episode, the second aired episode, Syndication Somatics, episode 3, Deadly Maneuvers.
Oh, what a fun follow-up to the made-for-TV movie that ended up being eventually rejiggered into the 2-part premiere or whatever. But like, this is a great follow. Like we were talking last week, there was such a huge production value on that first on Night of the Phoenix that you're like, surely there's going to be a drop off. And this one honestly wasn't much of a drop off. Still good action, still a lot of a very interesting espionage plot where they don't explain everything to you right away. You really have to stick with the story to get it. So I was very impressed with this one too.
Do you want to read the synopsis?
Yeah, I guess so. All right. What's it about, you ask?
Yes.
Okay, well, after giving a lift to a woman to an army base, Michael investigates her father's death and discovers a plot to sell nuclear weapons.
All right, this one's directed by Paul Stanley. Action TV show guide on Charlie's Angels, Fall Guy, MacGyver. Written by Glenn Larson. William Schmidt, who writes 11 episodes of this, writes or produces 11 episodes of the show. Currently producing Yellowstone, a show that everybody watches and I don't. And Bob Shane, who writes a lot of 80s TV like Murder, She Wrote, Spencer for Hire, Heart to Heart, Magnum PI, starring David Hasselhoff, Edward Mulhare, Patricia McPherson, Alan Oppenheimer, Devin Erickson, Alan Williams, and Tom Gillerin. So we add our third lead to this, Patricia McPherson as Bonnie.
Yeah,
which
is interesting. And she kind of comes out of left field, like when she's only introduced and she's in one scene of this episode when Kit needs some mobile repairs and they drive him into the semi-turned auto shop that they have. And Hasselhoff, Michael Knight, gets out of the car and acts like he instantly recognizes her. He's like, hey, you two. I'm like, who's this person? Like, she's literally never been on this series before. Like, did we shoot this out of order? What did we do wrong here?
I have a feeling that in whatever production blocks they shot, this was not the intended third episode. And I think back then it's a procedural show with no real continuity between episodes, that they might have thought this was more entertaining than what they had at third to try to hook people and bump this there. Because a lot of this feels like some time has passed and we missed out on some things, because there's conversations with Michael and Kit where they've had this like relationship, and like apparently like Kit's like, because Michael comes across this woman stranded by her car after the opening scene of this, and Kit makes a thing about him picking up ladies all the time.
Right. Is this going to be another thing? And according to what we've seen, this is the second time. Like, there is no pattern here yet, but obviously, like you said, yes, there is a pattern that's been established. So
and Devin
I can
says
see
some
that,
things.
so.
He says some things too. That's like this should be like episode 6, maybe.
Right, but like you said, when the episodes are self-contained and don't really thread together, like you don't reference anything here that would have happened before. So what do they care what order it gets put out as, I suppose. So
right, or maybe they just wanted to throw in Bonnie, like, hey, just pretend she's always been here.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting thing too, because this is at least to us now, this being the third episode, this is the first time that the recurring, I don't know if you call it a gag or a theme or whatever, but the recurring issue of Kit damaging his alpha circuit comes into play like that. It happens, several times here throughout the season. So maybe that's why they wanted to bump up this episode and put it, early to be like, hey, look, this is a thing that happens all the time or whatever. I have no idea if that's the case, but I know that kind of becomes a theme. And this is the first time that we as the viewer are exposed to it. That's true. Yep. Yeah. That kind of a start the thread line right after the big movie thing. That probably, good idea. One cool feature Kit you can do is play video games inside of him. Yeah, so who knew? Yeah, cutting edge Atari. Yeah, Michael was just jamming his joystick like as a average video gamer is wont to do, just mash some buttons or button singular, I guess, on the Atari joystick, if you will. So, I mean, they went out of their way to show that Kit can do. Look how tech forward he is, right? Like he's got video games on, and it made for a nice, funny gag where they were like, Michael, you're going to crash if you go too fast. And you think they're talking about Kit and they're talking about whatever pole position or whatever he's playing. Yeah. So. Right. So this whole episode deals with the thing with some guy at a military base finds some weird paint on something and he ends up getting killed, like run off the road and killed. The person that Michael picks up is his daughter. She doesn't think they ruled it a suicide, right? Something like that. They ruled it an accident. Accident. Yeah, that's right. His Jeep accidentally drove off the ravine, even though he drives that road every day to work. And as Michael and his daughter quickly reconstruct the accident, they realize that from the way he becoming, he would have just rolled into the to the non-cliff side of the mountain, and he just would have bounced off the hill instead of falling to his death. So very clearly they could tell that it was some sort of a cover-up going on here. So he teams up with her to solve this mystery, which is off course from what Michael's supposed to be doing. But the girl's all gung-ho for it. Her name is Robin Ladd, which is like she's supposed to be like Cheryl Ladd and Robin what's her name? But I love they have the line like, sorry, you can take the girl out of West Point, but you can't. All right. And such a weird thing too, because like I obviously I like and appreciate the military theme, but when she shows up, first of all, when Michael discovers her, she's driving a total junker that's on the side of the road, but she's like, I'm on active duty and I'm heading to the military base. I'm like, shouldn't you be in a Jeep or an envoy or something? So and then she goes to see her dad and she's like, I'm gonna surprise him in his office, and she goes in and they're like, ooh, didn't anybody tell you he's dead? I'm like, what? This is not the way that the Army communicates things. That doesn't make any sense. Right. So I do like Michael tells her he's like an insurance man, which like inadvertently plays into his tactical research, because they're like, well, he used to figure out people are lying about insurance and stuff, so he'd be a good investigator. But she does find a shell casing, which helps him like be like, ooh, there's a shell casing around military bases. Right. Dad crashed. So that's gotta mean, but the funny thing is he's being watched by the military guys while he's doing it. And the guy goes, what do you think, Sergeant? And the guy's like, I think it might be time for another funeral. Very ominous. Oh, love those ominous one-liners. Yep. So there is a wonderful hokey moment where Michael, to do research, he's trying to get inside the military facility, which he can't do. And he takes over this food stand for this guy. He pays him a bunch and tells him like, hey, just let him know, tell him I'm your cousin when they ask you about it. And it's played. Oh, more music. Ricky, Steely Dan. Ricky, don't lose that number. Just that's playing right there. Just out in the open. And so he wears this stupid hat and puts on like he's like trying to convince people he's really working this stand, which like nobody in the fucking world, but they buy it. And he's like trying to deliver stuff, and he ends up getting taken to be questioned in this room, and randomly on the desk is the Ernest Ladd file. Thank goodness. Right. Under his tray. So yeah,
that
up
was
to that
hilarious.
point, I was giving the show full credit because like when you go and put yourself in a situation like this, like the army guys, like, and you want to infiltrate, like a lot of times it's very easy to make them look like bumbling idiots and things like that. But no, I mean, they glommed onto him right away. They took him into custody. They sat him down. The general who interrogated him knew a lot of information, went through his wallet and was like, why do you have a business card that says you sell insurance and that you do this? And like, they were very like suspicious and onto him right
Yeah.
away. It ended up getting cleared by that very thin, like they went and talked to the guy who owns the cart and he's like, yeah, that's my nephew. And like, okay, you said he was Uncle Sanj and that's good enough for us, I guess. So yeah, but they were doing so well. But yes, then conveniently, the one piece that he needed was not only on the desk, but the two guards who were in the room with him guarding him both conveniently looked away at the same time to eat candy bars so he could slide it and take it. Yeah, super convenient. So and very clear on my rewatch when he gave the general on his way out, he gives the general a Snickers. They took a piece of paper and covered the Snickers logo just enough to avoid whatever copyright. I could see like the NIC of Snickers, and that's it. So like, oh, it's a generic candy. Have this generic candy bar, please, sir. Gosh. Thank you so much. So
that's great. So I want to say this about David Hasselhoff here as Michael Knight. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I'm loving that Michael Knight kind of has this Bruce Campbell as Ash type like schmuck kind of thing going on.
Sure.
It's not like my memory serves like David Hasselhoff was cool and this like badass kind of in this, but he's goofy. Like this is some like I can watch this guy week to week because he's still like he's he looks like he takes himself seriously, but he also is like a good straight man in comedy situations. And he's like, that's what it reminded me of like Bruce Campbell in the Evil Dead movies and stuff, because I'm like he's all like, yeah, I'm cool, but like you're not.
Yeah, it's a great reminder that Michael Knight, formerly Michael Long, is relatively an everyman. Like he wasn't trained in like super secret espionage. Yes, last episode we established that he knows kung fu and things like that, but he was a police officer. Granted, he was a good police officer because he was in undercover stings and things like that. But he is far from like a trained assassin, CIA super agent. He's just a regular guy that happened to have his face messed up and perfectly reconstructed and is now able to do things that other guys can't in terms of, going to places and things like that. So yeah, it's a nice reminder and it helps keep the show kind of grounded, which is nice. So
he's like a tall, kind of built oaf that it's funny to watch. I gotta credit Hasselhoff because he's doing a hell of a job with this, like probably not on paper comedic role that is just working for me a lot. Like I really enjoy watching this guy in this role, which is not something I expected, just like a more Baywatch-esque Hasselhoff type performance here, but in like 80s goofiness. But this is a whole nother level. Like this type of actor, he'd be like doing big business nowadays. Like this is kind of ahead of its time stuff here. With Michael Knight.
Yeah, it's another one of those, like we talked about in the last episode. It's one of those kind of perfect combination of like great casting. He had good, he has great enigma with Kit, even though Kit is just a disassociated voice in his car. Like they kind of banter together very well. It's very fun to kind of see that. And as these episodes progress, you get the feeling that both of them are not perfect, right? Like even Kit is supposed to be like this supercomputer car. He's got some like insecurities. He's not sure how to talk to Michael. Like his alpha circuit breaks down because he tows a car and he's not supposed to, even though
he gives in to stuff. Yeah.
Right. Like he didn't want to do that. Michael was like, Kit, come on, do it. Like who's going to talk a supercomputer into doing something? Apparently Michael Knight is. So, and it was an interesting little sidebar on the trivia too, when they had that opening scene where Michael met Robin and the car was broken down. And Michael was like, hey, we're going to tow this car. And he's like, you can't be serious. And they're like, no, get ready to tow it. And then it immediately cuts to both cars are at the military base. And they're like, well, that's that. We towed it. So they actually did shoot scenes of of the Trans Am towing, but it kept breaking down, so they had to scrap that whole part, and they're like, we're just gonna have to go right to the end. Forget it. So it was a very interesting way that they had to kind of skip that part, essentially. So
the magic of television.
So, exactly.
Yeah. So there's a scene where like Michael and Robin are coming out of this diner, obviously having compared over a meal, but Michael's like, well, that certainly was food.
It's such a weird throwaway line. Yeah.
Just he's like, oh, I feel like eat at this diner.
Right. And act like you're some health nut who just happened to stop into some junk food palace. It's a regular old diner, so whatever.
Yeah. So we you mentioned the towing, and we talked about the semi earlier, but Devin also, he has the line, like I said, another production, like he said, I can no longer fund your wild goose chases. Like, this is our first wild goose chase he's been on.
Yeah, let the man have a few gooses to chase. Yeah,
what has happened here? So apparently the plot of this, and tell me if I'm wrong, Tony, is like that what they uncover is there's nukes, and the bad guys, the military guys that are in on this, are painting the nukes the color of munition stuff, and they're selling it to very bad people around the world.
Right. Very vague on that front, but yeah, that's how they are essentially smuggling. No word on how they get the nuclear weapons to begin with.
Yeah.
But yes, it's very, thanks to a very plain and overbearing poster in the munitions depot, you can tell that the munitions that have a blue stripe on them are the general, they're armor piercing munitions.
Right.
And if it has a yellow stripe on it, those are the nuclear weapons that may just be hanging around. But yes, they are painting, essentially the bad army guys are painting the yellow stripes blue with regular old like Sherwin-Williams style paint, and that's how Robin's dad got caught. He was in the munitions looking around, apparently put his hand in the blue paint, he gasped, and then tried to drive away with that information, and they ran him off the road and killed him like that. You don't find that out until later, because they did a fairly decent job, the writers did, of keeping you wondering like who's good, who's bad, what's going on. They did a pretty good whodunit type of episode here. So I appreciate the writing that went into play, even though some of the details are, kind of basic at the end, but it is what it is. So
yeah. So I mean, Robin ends up getting arrested, and then they stick her in a testing facility for a shooting, a place where they shoot off bombs and stuff. Michael heads to the rescue out there with Kit getting shot at, and my gosh, it feels huge again. Like, these action scenes are not like, we're television. They don't need excuses. They're actually impressive. There's a lot of explosions and Kit drive, and just feels like the open area desert that they're in. Like, Kit gets attacked. There's a funny line happened. Michael's like, Kit, they're shooting at us. And he goes, thank you, Michael, but I noticed that myself.
Some very droll back and forth when they then later in that same scene they came to a stop to rescue Robin, and then when they got back in the car, Michael gets in and he goes, hit it, and Kit goes, oh, I wish you wouldn't use phrases like that, like very droll, kind of like haha, buddy back and forth stuff. But it's fun to establish the rapport.
I like it.
And and I also appreciate in this scene they're also establishing that even Kit is not 100% sure of like his capabilities, because they said that he's allegedly like an indestructible car, nothing can penetrate his his outer hull and things like that. But as they're driving through this test field, Michael's like, do you think you can handle all this if we take a direct hit? It's like, I don't know, maybe, I'm not really sure. So yeah, they kind of established that we really don't know like Kit's limits here. And there was one point, whether it was intentional or not, it could have been like a side effect of the practical stunts, but there's one point that Kit does get hit, and you can see like the car turns off quickly and is pretty much on fire on the driver's side before they cut away real quick. It's like, ooh, something happened there, but no big deal. So
it's in the dailies.
Yeah, there's an interesting spot at the end of this scene too, where and it ended up feeling like a throwaway bit, but I wonder if they had more planned for it, because as they're shooting this stuff, as they're doing the target practice and shooting off the rounds, one of the Army guys calls and he's like, "We need more rounds. Call the munitions guy." And it's very like, oh, wink, wink. They're going to the munitions depot where the nuclear bombs are. And then they cut to the vehicle there and they're like, "Bring those armor-piercing rounds," which we've established are really nuclear bombs. And then they show up at the range with them and they're like, "Here they are." And they put a box on the ground and then Kit slams into the box immediately. I'm like, it's going to blow. But nothing happens. Nothing happens. I'm like, why did you set us up like that? What are you thinking? I thought it was going to be Fallout, but
maybe
no.
they'd switched them back. That was the key, that they switched them back, and they were actually
apparently
munitions.
So. Okay, everything's back to normal now.
Yeah,
so.
Kit does show off his rocket booster, which is just him farting out a flame.
Rocket booster, right? Because there's 3 heat-seeking missiles coming at him. He's like, "Get that rocket booster ready." It's just a flamethrower, but whatever. Okay.
Yeah. So the plan, Michael charges the attackers. One pulls out a nuke, but then it's over. He says, and his like little like Bond one-liners, "I think you just lost your pension."
It was such a dramatic thing because first, so the general who you didn't know was in on the nuclear stuff until the very end, when that's like the final twist, like he's the bad guy because he talks to Michael. Michael calls him and Michael tells him the plot. And he's like, "Thank you, Mr. Knight. You're a very brave man." And then he immediately gets on the horn and he's like, "There's a black car on the range. This is an unmanned drone. The first person to kill it gets a 3-day weekend." And everybody's like, "Woo!" So yeah, but then he tries to, I can't tell, he gets in a vehicle with a soldier and he's like, "Just drive." And I can't tell if he's trying to get away or go somewhere, but he doesn't go very far. Kit stops him. And then, they pull him out. They get the terrible one-liner. Not only that, but then Robin is standing next to him and she looks like she's about to cry. Like she can't figure it out. And she pulls his rank pips off his collar so dramatically. I'm like, oh my God. And he just stands there and takes it, whatever. It's like I would have got away with it if not for you darn kids. So.
Cars. Yeah, you and your car, your kids and your cars. So then like at the end of us all, like Devin's all heated up. He's like, "Another Michael Knight situation, total confusion, mass destruction, all in good cause, of course, yet without the slightest regard." He's like, yes, another part of his pattern, a young lady who innocently causes. And but that
right. So they're very heavy on the patterns, kind of leading to the fact that this was likely not intended to be the second episode. Not only that, but this is the only episode outside of the pilot episode, which we did last week, where there is no opening narration by Richard Basehart. So my guess is there was narration, but that may have tried to tie into another episode that hadn't aired yet. Maybe they pulled it out and they're like, okay, well, this, because literally every other episode in the series has that opening narration except for this one. So
interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the president calls the military and wants to talk to somebody, and Michael's like, "Well, you said I did this on my own, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, and then Michael wants to take the call from the president, but Devin takes the call and he wants to take all the credit for this whole thing.
Got to keep it lighthearted there with the Devin, like, "Yeah, no, that's easy. It's all you. I disavow everything." "Ooh, the president's on the line. Gimme. Yeah." Right, so very fun, of course. So
and then at the end, very 80s thing, we see Kit has a "Go Army" bumper sticker.
Yeah, like somebody defaced the car or whatever, but they, maybe that was like an homage to servicemen type of thing. But yes, it's the camera goes in and lingers for several, like way too long on the bumper sticker, but it's all in good fun, of course. So
right, but yeah, this I enjoyed this one too. It shows showing out better than I anticipated. Like I'm just like, oh, they're actually pretty more clever with this than I think people remember. "Oh, guy just talking car does stuff, blah blah blah." I'm like, that's actually a pretty. I mean, it had some hamperings because the trappings of TV and having to wrap things up in like a 45-minute span. There's some some people are saying you have to do some point A to B quick shortcuts and stuff sometimes, but I really enjoyed the character of Michael Knight. If he's going to be like this every week, this doofy bastard that goes around with his car and does stuff, I'm like, holy crap, this works. For a show with a premise that
here 40 years later, like we talked about last week, is very mundane. Like, ooh, talking car, smart car, it does things for you, like hot dog, like, you know. But it holds up well because I think you can feel their excitement back in the day of how this was so different. Like everyone is incredulous. Like even like there's a spot here where Kit, like Michael jumps out of the car to go chase some of the bad army guys, and he's like, Kit, go get those two that are running away. And Kit just Kit gently pins them against a wall. But they're like looking at it like there's no driver. But they don't come out and say the stupid stuff like, there's no driver. Did you see that car?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
no driver. They, it's implied that they can tell by their facial expressions, but so it's got a good vibe. You can feel at the time how groundbreaking and how unique this situation of Kit's mere existence really was.
Right. And again, the cinematography on here is big and feels, I don't know, feels much a step above a lot of stuff from the era on television then in 82 and a lot of like 90s stuff as well. Like I mean, they're not picking any like incredible places to shoot at, but they're shooting them well when they are there. Like it's
yes.
And for things that are like on the move and got to shoot fast, got to move, we got a schedule. We're doing 22 episodes this year. It's pretty impressive so far. We'll see if it ever plateaus or anything like that. But right now it's on a good level.
I appreciate it because so many sci-fi shows, especially back in the day, had the premise where like, oh, we've got to get to an alien planet or we got to get to this strange world. And so you have to create on a soundstage, you have to try to create this brand new environment, and obviously budget constraints and things like that won't always let you do it. This show, the science fiction aspect is in what is happening to mundane everyday objects, not the setting. So they're able to set in real world locations, but have fantastical things happening because of this fantastical machine. So it's got a very unique vibe, especially for the time of science fiction shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm very excited to keep going on through this season to tassel more Hoff here.
Absolutely.
KITT. So Tony, let's shift gears and look on toward the sunset. Before we hit the horizon, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can come hang out with me. I do a lot of my writing as the senior editor of sciencefiction.com. So you can pop over there for news and reviews, and we can chat over there. If you want to talk to me directly or argue about nerdy stuff, you can find me on any of the social medias simply by searching Tony Schaab. Simple and easy.
Even Truth Social?
Well, maybe not that one.
Okay.
If you search for that one, you'll probably end up with my profile from like Farmers Only, but you can just disregard that. So
there we go. All right. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brand4KUHD, written work at whitesoulblue.com. Monday, Tim Burton retrospective keeps on trucking, and be here Wednesday for another exciting boy in his car, leather jackets, tight jeans, and boots with red turtlenecks. Feathered hair episode of Knight Rider, but from Old Space,
Brandon and Tony, not so lone crusaders in a dangerous world, the world of Old Space Show.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production, produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.